अस्सलाम वालेकुम। वेलकम बैक टू माय चैनल। चलते हैं आज की न्यू एपिसोड की तरफ। जैसे कि स्क्रीन पे आप लोगों को टॉपिक दिख रहा है। द टुडे टॉपिक ऑफ टुडेज एपिसोड इज द बिगेस्ट चैलेंजेस फेसिंग जर्नलिस्ट, अ लैक ऑफ इंटरेस्ट। तो आज हम इस पर बात करते हैं कि जर्नलिस्ट अपनी करियर लाइफ में, अपने स्टूडेंट लाइफ में इतनी मेहनत करते हैं, लेकिन जब उनका करियर कंप्लीट हो जाता है तो उनको प्रोफेशनल लाइफ में क्रेडिबिलिटी बिल्ड करनी पड़ती है, जिसमें उनको काफ़ी टाइम लग जाता है। तो आज हम इसके बारे में डिस्कस करेंगे। The single biggest challenge facing journalism today is the public's lack of trust in it. This is not a new challenge, but it's persistent and has been getting worse. Gallup's most recent poll on trust is in USA media found only 18% of respondents believe news organizations supported democracy very well or well. By contrast, 43% of respondents believe news media supported democracy poorly or very poorly. Public trust in news media was warned for many reasons. The collapse of traditional advertising dominated business models have left news organizations as a whole with fewer resources to produce quality journalism. Audiences have reacted negatively to sensationalized coverage and clickbait as new organizations try to entice people to click on stories online. A lack of trust in media has also been connected to declining trust in government and other institutions. Media are seen as being controlled by powerful people who wanted to push their personal agents rather than serve the public. Individual journalists are also seen as powerful people who push agendas that are not always in the public interest. This was clear in the recent book Becoming the News, which focused on the experiences of ordinary people who became news subjects. The book noted a disconnect between the way ordinary people see journalists and the way journalists see themselves. The new subject felt like David to journalism's Goliath. In the interactions with journalists, news subjects often felt like they were used by journalists to tell stories whose directions was out of their control. In journalists' minds, though, they are David facing down the powers that be in the name of citizens. This disconnect reveals another reason for a lack of trust in media. Journalists often do not recognize the power they wield over members of the public and thus fail to treat them with sufficient care and respect. Having the trust of one's audience is vital to journalism's core function of sense making. Audience depends upon journalists to help them make sense of current events by explaining them in context, such as by providing a history of events that led up to latest news. The context journalists provide depends on a shared ideology or news judgment. Journalists also consider who is their imagined audience in order to determine what background information is relevant to. As their audience primarily local, national, or international, do they imagine their audience to be other journalists or 12-year-old girls? Journalists know more about their audience than they used to. Tools such as Google Analytics, Chartbeat allows journalists to see data about their audiences and which articles they read, like, share most. However, having the information does not necessarily help journalists communicate with their audience more effectively. Analytics provide a limited view of who audience are. Journalists still remain out of touch with the lived reality of their audiences, viewing them mostly as abstractions. Although journalists recognize the importance of audience to their work, they are often reluctant to involve them in editorial decisions. This is by my side for today's episode. Inshallah, I'll meet you in the next episode. Till that, take care. Allah Hafiz.